So how do we deal with police reform? Better cops. You know, cops, they need to be better trained. Cops need to be psychologically evaluated every so often, every couple of years or so, to avoid problems. Second of all, we need to get rid of diversity hiring and identity politics in law enforcement. The very best, only the very best of society should become cops. They need to bring up the standard again, because in the last decades or so, they've lowered the standards to be cops because I guess we need more cops, and nobody is becoming cops anymore. Nobody's becoming cops anymore, so they had to lower the standards, and so they could keep recruiting. Cops, especially the RCMP in Canada, used to be an honored and cherished establishment. But now the RCMP has gotten wicked, and the RCMP has lowered the standards for recruitment. Used to be the only time you could go into basic training as a cop was once you turned 25, and they wanted people to actually have some military service before they became cops. And I really think that's the standard they should go back to, because not only do spending a little bit of time in the military, especially when you're a young man, it will teach you discipline and how to follow the rules, how to evaluate the situation a little bit better. Like, I personally have been brutalized by cops. Even the last time I was arrested, they broke 3 of my ribs. Fractured my breastplate, and gave me a concussion. All for a traffic infraction. And granted, I was being an asshole to the cops because I was so upset that this creepy cop, would bother me and waste my time, waste taxpayers' time, just for what? To infringe on my charter of rights, my civil rights, my constitutional rights to be left alone and mind my own business? Unfortunately, cops like that are the problem. Unfortunately, overzealous cops are the problem. Cops with inferiority complexes are the problem. And the truth of the matter is, if I was in a yard fight with that cop who infringed on my constitutional rights, my charter of rights, just as a free-thinking citizen, to be left alone, you know, if it was a yard fight, I would have kicked the fuck out of him. But you can't defend yourself against cops. And that's a problem as well. Cops, you know, they can charge you with assaulting a police officer if you just touch them, or you spit on them, or you hit them by accident when they tackle you to the ground and give you a concussion and break 3 of your ribs and fracture your breastplate. You can't defend yourself against cops, and that's bad. Certain laws need to be changed. Certain laws need to be changed when it comes to cops, because sometimes cops have way too much power. They have way too much power. Not even sometimes. They have way too much power. And when you have these overzealous cops that have inferiority complexes, maybe they were teased or bothered when they were little kids or whatever in school, and they were always teased and beaten up or whatever. They grow into men, and then they're still boys. In their mind, they're still boys. But they become police officers. What's the saying? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But when you have overzealous cops, like the ones that just the ones who busted 3 of my ribs and fractured my breastplate. This was not even that long ago. And just even a few days ago, I got a speeding ticket. And they called 6 cops to intimidate and harass me. That's totally unacceptable, man. That's the problem with cops. And police reform needs to be dealt with. Cops need to be psychologically tested annually, like every couple years, every 3 years or so, because cops suffer from PTSD. Cops become rigid. Cops become what they hate. They become corrupt and twisted. They become corrupt and twisted. They become what they hate. And cops need to be tested every so often for psychological evaluation. And identity politics needs to be out of everything, period. Identity politics needs to be out of everything. And especially law enforcement. Identity politics needs to get the fuck out of law enforcement, because only the very best of society, the very best of civilization should become cops. Because if you have overzealous cops, they'll ruin your life. Like even myself personally, there's certain jobs that I can't get because I have a criminal record, a permanent record, and there's certain jobs that I can't apply for because I'm not bondable. All because I got in a little bit of trouble when I was a little kid. Well, not a little kid, I was 18, 19. I got in a little bit of trouble with the cops. And I have an assaulting police officer on my permanent record. And I have had to deal personally with overzealous cops, police harassment, to the point where I had to stop putting my car in my name because it's cost me probably well over $30,000 actually throughout the years because of overzealous cops. Every time they ran my plate, they would pull me over for whatever reason, and then they'd make stuff up like, oh, well, you refuse to stop, or rolling stop, or just ridiculous stuff. Oh, your taillight's out. It wasn't as extreme as you see in the movies where they smash out your taillight or whatever, but then you go into the back of the car after the ticket's over and stuff, and you go, oh, well, my taillight wasn't out, so they're just being assholes. But anyways, I personally have suffered a lot of harassment from cops. There's been times when cops have tried to pick fights with me. One specific cop I could imagine was, not imagine, it was true. He pulled over. His name was Constable Horachuk or something stupid. I don't think he's a cop anymore. I think he got fired because he's a corrupt, twisted motherfucker. Little man syndrome. But anyways, he pulled over his squad car. He got out of the car and he tried to pick a fight with me while I was walking home, just because he didn't like me. And thank the gods that I restrained myself. Thank the gods I did not let him manipulate me into a yard fight, because then I would have really screwed up my life. But I guess the word is coaxed me into a yard fight. I stood my ground anyway, but But the bottom line is, it's just cops like that. I have PTSD from cops. Throughout my life, I've had a lot, throughout my life, I've been beaten by the cops. And just like the last time I was arrested, like I said, they gave me a concussion, busted 3 of my ribs, and fractured my breastplate. If that's not excessive, then I don't know what is. And it was all for a traffic infraction. Like, but I was so mad, I was an asshole. I'm gonna admit, I was an asshole to the cop, but he had no right to bother me, infringe on my constitutional right, my charter of rights, my civil rights. Minding my own business. He just didn't like the way I looked or whatever, so he pulled me over, right? And Sylvie, that's enough. Quit your whining. But anyways, no, police reform is a touchy issue because we want the very best. We want the very best that represents the laws and treaties of the land. But when we are putting identity politics and diversity hires into law enforcement, there is no, it's ridiculous because we need the very best. And if we had the very best cops, like for 90% of cops, they're generally pretty decent people. Generally, they're just doing their job, generally speaking. But there's the 10% of cops that are just dicks, right? They have an inferiority complex or a little man syndrome or just overzealous or have some self-righteous indignation. Who knows? Who knows? They're not psychologically fit for the job. And we need to get back to the standard, right? Where they prefer if you spend some time in the military so you can learn discipline and and then once you turn 25, because after 25, especially a man, generally after 25, that piss and vinegar's out of you. So you develop into the man that you become when you're 25, and you're better able to reason. You're better able to reason. You're better able to evaluate the situation, so people don't get wrongfully shot or somebody just pulls out their gun and blows somebody away because they got a little bit scared and are a little bit overzealous. Cops and we the people need better rights against cops, corrupt cops especially, cops that are overzealous, cops that are self-righteous, cops. Those kinds of cops need to go away. Those kinds of cops need to be a bylaw officer or something. Those cops that spoil the bunch, it's bad because we the people should not fear cops. They're there to serve and protect. That is the motto of the most police forces around the world, to serve and protect. But more often than not, they only protect the elite. They only protect the people that have money, and the only justice we get is if you buy it. Like lots of people get thrown in jail for stupid things like assaulting a police officer. And, if you touch a cop, if you touch a cop, or you just step out of the way when they're trying to grab you, oh, resisting arrest. Oh, we're going to beat the fuck out of you now because you resisted arrest. Oh, you touched me. Oh, I've been assaulting a police officer. Oh, you touched that cop too. Oh, that's times 2. But no, I've had my bad experiences with cops, I tell you what. And I do suffer from PTSD from cops, and I try to avoid them at all costs. And this last time was bad. They brutalized me. And there's nothing I can do about it. I can't defend myself. I can't do anything. And they'll still charge you for resisting arrest, and they'll still charge you for assaulting a police officer. That's absolutely wrong. That needs to be abolished. Cops need to wear body cams all around the world. Cops Every cop, every police force around the world needs to wear body cams as as uh, as part of their attire, because cops will lie, cheat, and steal. Cops will do whatever it takes to reach that status quo, that monthly quota. And the bad cops spoil the bunch, right? And the problem is also the police force itself, because they shouldn't be protecting bad cops, but because of the brotherhood and blah blah blah, whatever, it's wrong. Cops need to be the very best of society, the very, very best of society, because when you got corrupt cops or bad cops, it makes it bad for everyone on the force. For the 90%, 95% of good cops, 10 or 5% of cops that are bad, they need to be called out by their force, by their higher ups. And they need to be either bylaw officers and never have the power to affect somebody's life ever again. There's a lot of bad people in the world, and we do need cops. And unfortunately, it's getting worse, right? So, and the more people that come to our lands that are from different countries and different rules for, different culture, different everything, they have maybe different rules, and there's, that made no sense, but whatever, I don't care. But cops, they really need to be better trained. They need to have, they need to be psychologically evaluated every so often, every couple of years or so, especially in the big violent cities like Chicago and Vancouver and, all major cities. Like some cops, they suffer from PTSD, and they become rigid and non-compassionate because, cops really get sick of being lied to all the time. Cops really get to see the ugliness of mankind, a lot of them. And it's unfortunate that good men fall, because, they probably, when they were young and they wanted to be a cop, they wanted to do good, they wanted to do God's work, whatever. They wanted to benefit society. But the longer they spend on the force, the more corrupt they become, the more rigid they become, the more wicked they become. They become the things that they hate, because they just get so rigid and so discontented. And so they need to be evaluated every once in a while. Like, overzealous cops need to be called out by their higher ups. And these overzealous cops need to be called out, right? So, like I've said probably like 5 times already in this, cops need better training. Cops need to be the very best of society. They need to be strong, outstanding people. And also the laws need to change as well. For people like myself that aren't violent, who aren't criminals, but that fear the cops. Like, I should not have to fear the cops. If I see them pull behind me, I should not have any sense of fear at all that they're going to mess up my life or infringe on my constitutional rights, on my charter of rights. Nobody should fear cops. They should be a beacon of hope. They should be a beacon of honor and justice and outstanding citizenship. They should be the very best, the very pinnacle of what it is to be a member of society. They should be evaluated every so often, every couple of years, to make sure that they haven't gone crazy or they haven't become bitter and broken, twisted and corrupt. and identity politics totally needs to be wiped off of law enforcement. There is no room for identity politics in law enforcement, because only the very best of the best should be police officers. Because the bottom line is that cops have the power to destroy your life. They've destroyed my life. They've cost me thousands of dollars over my lifetime. They've cost me jobs just for the fact that I have a criminal record, for things that I, just trumped up charges, like things that they needed to charge me for because they needed an explanation or a reason to pull me over, or justify beating me up. I do suffer from PTSD from cops. I honestly do suffer from PTSD from when I see cops. I try to avoid them as much as I possibly can. And I'm talking from experience. There is no human on earth that should fear the cops. No person on earth should fear the cops. They should be a beacon of hope. They should be a beacon of justice and truth and honor. They should be the highest members of society, and they should be respected. But when you have bad cops that ruin it all for everyone, then cops are just become monsters. Cops become wicked. They become the thing that they hate. The things that they are supposed to protect us from. The evil that is. Cops need to be held to a higher standard. So that means if the cops are brutalizing people, and if there's any charges against brutality, or those cops should be evaluated, and those cops should be evaluated and suspended for any brutality, any charges of brutality, or any, what's the word I'm looking for? Excessive force. Any record of excessive force on a cop's record, that cop needs to be disciplined right away, because cops need to be held to a higher standard. Cops need to be held to a higher standard. And if a cop can brutalize just anybody they want because they're having a bad day or whatever, that makes every good cop look bad. And the truth of the matter is, bad cops exist. Sadly, we don't have the best anymore because we've had to lower standards because they need to keep their numbers up, right? So they've had to lower numbers, and because of identity politics and diversity hiring and stuff like that, we're not getting the best people to be cops nowadays. And unfortunately, that is the case. That is the state of the world that we're in right now. Cops that are power hungry, cops that are overzealous, cops that are psychologically not able to do the job. They need to be held to a higher standard, and their higher ups need to be even held to a higher standard than the actual beat cop, because they're there to serve and protect the people. They're there to protect us from the evil that lingers in men's hearts. And if the cops themselves are evil or corrupt, then they have no reason, or they have no rhyme or reason to be infringing on my constitutional rights and my charter of rights. They have no right to give me tickets just because they don't like the way I look. They have no right to infringe on my personal space, on my property. They shouldn't. Cops need to be held to a higher standard. That's all I'm saying. And that means psychologically testing on a regular basis. Make sure that we get the best of the best. Get rid of identity politics in law enforcement, period. And then we should get back to the standard where you got to be 25, maybe spend some time in the military, even if you didn't spend time in the military but did Army cadets or whatever. So you're discipline and awareness and all that other good stuff. I think that's about it. That's about it. Sounds like a rambling rant, but whatever. Peace.